The rain came down like judgment that night. Cold, relentless, merciless. A black Mercedes sedan rolled to a stop outside a corner convenience store. Inside that car sat wealth beyond measure. Outside, on the cracked sidewalk, knelt poverty in its rawest form. A woman, thin as a whisper, clutched an infant wrapped in a soaked blanket. Beside her, a 7-year-old boy with eyes too old for his face knelt in a puddle. His small hands trembled as they reached toward a styrofoam container someone had left on the curb. Half-eaten fried chicken. Cold fries. The remnants of someone else's Thursday night. The boy's voice cut through the storm, soft and desperate. "Ma, can we have your leftovers?" That's when the car door opened. A woman stepped out, her designer heels clicking against wet concrete. Elegant. Powerful. Cold. But something happened when her eyes met the widow's gaze. Something shifted in the universe. She moved forward, removed her $1,000 coat, and draped it over the shivering family. That single moment would unravel secrets buried for decades. It would expose lies, resurrect old wounds, and prove that sometimes the hand you push away is the same one that once lifted you from the dirt. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Who was the woman kneeling in the rain? What series of catastrophes had brought a mother to the point of begging strangers for their garbage? And why did the billionaire react the way she did? Was it pity? Compassion? Or something darker, something rooted in guilt she'd been running from for years? These two women, separated by wealth and circumstance, were about to discover they shared more than a rainy intersection. Their lives had been tangled together long before this night, woven into a pattern neither of them could see. One woman had everything money could buy but slept alone in her mansion. The other had nothing but faith and 2 children who depended on her next breath. The child whispered to his mother as the billionaire walked back to her car. "Mama, who is that woman?" His mother had no answer. Not yet. But she would soon learn that some encounters aren't accidents. Some moments are appointments with destiny that we're too blind to recognize until it's almost too late. Her name was Beverly. Beverly Thompson. Once upon a time, she'd been a schoolteacher with dreams bigger than her paycheck. She taught 5th grade at Lincoln Elementary on the east side, where the textbooks were older than some of the students and the ceiling leaked when it rained. But she loved those kids. She saw potential in faces that society had already given up on. Beverly met Christopher at a church function in the spring of 2016. He was a truck driver, solid and dependable, with a laugh that could fill a room. They married that fall in a small ceremony with 30 guests and a cake from the grocery store bakery. Within a year they had Kenneth. 2 years after that, little Imani arrived, tiny and perfect, with her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn spirit. They weren't rich, but they were happy. Christopher worked long hauls, sometimes gone for days, but he always came home. Always called. Always sent money for groceries and the light bill. Beverly kept teaching, kept believing that education could break cycles of poverty. She stayed late to tutor students. She bought supplies with her own money. She was the kind of teacher kids remembered decades later. Then came the accident. Interstate 85, just past midnight on a Tuesday in October 2022. A drunk driver crossed 3 lanes. Christopher never had a chance. The officer who came to her door said he didn't suffer. Beverly wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. Her husband was gone. Just gone. Like someone had erased him from the world. The life insurance paid for the funeral but not much else. Beverly tried to keep teaching, but grief is a full-time job. She missed days. She couldn't focus. The principal, a woman named Mrs. Patterson who wore too much perfume and smiled with her mouth but not her eyes, called her into the office on a Friday afternoon in January. "We need you to adjust some attendance records," Mrs. Patterson said, sliding a folder across the desk. "The district needs better numbers for funding. Just change a few dates. Mark some absences as present. Nobody gets hurt." Beverly stared at that folder like it was a snake. "That's fraud." Mrs. Patterson's smile disappeared. "That's survival. You're either part of the team or you're not." Beverly walked out. She didn't change the records. 2 weeks later, she was let go for performance issues. No discussion. No references. Nothing. The bills didn't care that she'd been honest. The landlord didn't care that she'd done the right thing. By spring, she was behind on everything. By summer, she was evicted. She took her children and what belongings fit in 2 suitcases to a shelter on Peachtree Street. But shelters have waiting lists and time limits. Eventually, they ended up on the street, sleeping in bus stations, begging for day-old bread from bakeries, collecting cans for nickels. That's how she ended up on that corner the night it rained. Hungry. Desperate. Watching her son reach for someone's leftovers because she couldn't give him anything better. The woman in the Mercedes, Adeline Cole, built an empire from nothing, or at least that's what Forbes magazine said in their profile. Cole Real Estate Development owned half the new construction in Atlanta. Luxury condos. Mixed-use retail. High-rises with rooftop pools and doormen who wore white gloves. Adeline's face appeared on billboards and business journals. She sat on charity boards and gave speeches about female entrepreneurship. But billionaires have secrets too. Adeline's secrets were older than her success, buried under layers of money and accomplishments and carefully maintained distance from her past. She grew up poor. Not struggling middle-class poor. Real poor. Government cheese and powdered milk poor. Her mother cleaned houses and her father disappeared before Adeline's 5th birthday. They lived in a shotgun apartment in the old 4th Ward before it got gentrified and trendy. Adeline wore clothes from Goodwill and learned early to be invisible because being seen meant being mocked. In high school, Adeline was smart but hungry in a way that scared people. She studied like her life depended on it because it did. She worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. She applied to every scholarship that existed. She got into Georgia State on a full ride and worked her way through business school. That's where she met Richard. Richard Cole, from a family with old money and older expectations. He saw something in Adeline that she didn't see in herself yet. Potential. Power. They married the summer after graduation. His family never approved. She didn't care. She had access now. Resources. Connections. Adeline got pregnant in 2008, right as the economy collapsed. Richard's family lost everything in bad investments. Suddenly the Cole name meant nothing. Suddenly, Adeline was the one keeping them afloat with her real estate ventures, buying properties at rock-bottom prices and flipping them when the market recovered. She was 8 months pregnant when she felt the first pains. Too early. Something was wrong. The doctors did everything they could, but the baby, a girl they'd already named Claire, didn't survive the delivery. Adeline woke up in a hospital room to silence. Empty arms. A husband who couldn't look at her. Richard left 6 weeks later. Didn't fight for anything in the divorce. Just disappeared like her father had. Like men do when things get hard. Adeline buried her grief in work. She built her company into something formidable. She made her first million, then her 10th, then her 100th. She bought a mansion in Buckhead with rooms she never entered. She attended galas and smiled for cameras and slept 3 hours a night because sleep brought dreams of the daughter who never took a breath. She told herself she was happy. She told herself success was enough. She told herself that the past was dead and that's where it should stay. Until that night. Until the rain. Until she saw a woman with 2 children kneeling on a sidewalk, and something in her chest cracked open. Adeline couldn't sleep that night. She sat in her home office, staring at financial reports she couldn't focus on, seeing instead the face of that woman in the rain. The boy asking for leftovers. The baby wrapped in a blanket that had probably been white once. She told herself it wasn't her problem. Atlanta was full of homeless people. You couldn't save everyone. Getting involved was messy and complicated and she had a business to run. But dawn came and she was still awake, still seeing that scene. So she did something she never did. She drove back to that corner. It was Saturday morning, early, and the streets were quiet. Beverly was there with her children, setting up a small card table with bags of roasted peanuts she must have bought wholesale somewhere. Trying to sell something, anything, to make a few dollars. Kenneth, the 7-year-old, sat on the curb doing homework in a tattered notebook. The baby slept in a stroller that had duct tape holding one wheel on. Adeline parked and got out. Beverly looked up, recognition and fear crossing her face in equal measure. "I don't want any trouble," Beverly said quietly. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Adeline replied. "I'm here because I can't stop thinking about last night. About you. About your kids." They talked. Not long, maybe 15 minutes. Beverly was guarded at first, protective. But something in Adeline's voice, something genuine beneath the polish and wealth, made her open up slightly. She told Adeline her name. Told her about Christopher. About losing her job. About trying to keep her children safe in a world that had no safety net for people like her. And then Adeline asked the question that changed everything. "Where did you teach?" "Lincoln Elementary. East Side." "What years?" 2015 until last year." "Why?" Adeline's face went pale. "Lincoln Elementary. I went there. Graduated in 1996. Beverly studied her. Really looked at her for the first time. And something clicked. "Wait, Adeline? Adeline Foster?" The use of her maiden name hit like a slap. How do you? I didn't teach you. I was too young for that. But I knew your mother. She cleaned my grandmother's house. And I remember you. You used to come with her sometimes during summer break. You'd sit in the kitchen doing homework while your mama worked. The world tilted. Adeline grabbed the car door to steady herself. This woman, this stranger begging for leftovers, was connected to her past in a way she never expected. Your grandmother used to give me books, Adeline said slowly, the memory surfacing. Old textbooks her kids didn't need anymore. Math books. History. She said I was too smart to waste. That was my grandmother. She saw potential in everyone. Beverly's voice was soft now, sad. She passed in 2019. They stood there in the morning sun, two women from different worlds discovering they'd crossed paths decades ago in ways neither remembered clearly until now. But the connection was real. The debt was real. Beverly's family had shown kindness to a poor girl who needed it. And now that girl, grown into a billionaire, stood before that family's descendant at their lowest point. Adeline made a decision. Come with me. You and your kids. I have space. I have resources. Let me help. Beverly shook her head. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's paying back a debt. Your grandmother helped me when nobody else would. Let me do the same. Beverly said no 3 times before she said yes. Pride is a powerful thing even when you're hungry. But Kenneth was coughing, a wet sound that spoke of days sleeping in damp places. And Imani needed diapers. And Beverly was so tired of being tired. So she packed their few belongings into Adeline's car. She strapped her children into seat belts that probably cost more than every piece of clothing she owned. And she let herself be driven to a neighborhood she'd only seen in magazines. The house was ridiculous. That was Beverly's first thought. 7 bedrooms. 4 bathrooms. A kitchen bigger than the apartment she'd been evicted from. Windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. A backyard with a pool covered for winter and a garden that professional landscapers maintained. Adeline showed them to a guest suite on the 2nd floor. 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom with a tub big enough for Kenneth to swim in. Clean sheets. Soft towels. A television mounted on the wall. Kenneth and Imani stared like they'd entered a dream. Take some time to settle in, Adeline said. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourself to anything. I have a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, but she won't bother you. I'll be in my office if you need anything. Beverly wanted to say thank you, but the words stuck in her throat. This was too much. Too fast. Too generous. People didn't do things like this without expecting something in return. But her children were safe. They had beds. They had heat. For the first time in months, Beverly let herself cry. Real tears. Not the silent kind she'd perfected so Kenneth wouldn't see. But deep, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere primal. Kenneth hugged her. It's okay, Mama. We're okay now. And for a moment, Beverly believed him. The first week was strange but manageable. Adeline was gone most days working. Beverly kept to the guest suite, afraid to touch anything, afraid to take up too much space. But Kenneth explored, curious and fearless in the way only children can be. He found the library and spent hours looking at books. He found the game room with a pool table and board games still in their packaging. He found the backyard and chased squirrels while Imani crawled in the grass. Slowly, Beverly began to relax. She cooked meals in that enormous kitchen. She did laundry in machines that beeped when they finished. She gave her children baths with soap that smelled like lavender. She watched them sleep in real beds with real pillows and felt something close to hope. Adeline would come home late, exhausted, but she always checked on them. Asked about their day. Played with Imani for a few minutes, making the baby giggle. She treated Kenneth with respect, talking to him like he was a person, not just a kid. What are you reading? She'd ask. And Kenneth would show her, and she'd listen like his opinions mattered. It felt too good to be true. And Beverly had lived long enough to know that things that feel too good to be true usually are. The crack started small. Adeline's housekeeper, a woman named Rosa who'd worked for her for 5 years, started asking questions. How long are they staying? She asked Adeline one morning while organizing the kitchen. I haven't decided, Adeline replied. Rosa wiped down the counter with more force than necessary. You don't know these people. They could be anyone. People take advantage, Miss Cole. You need to be careful. I know who they are, Adeline said firmly. But doubt is a seed, and once planted, it grows. Then there was Adeline's business partner, a man named Lawrence who'd been with her since the beginning. He came by the house to drop off contracts and saw Beverly in the kitchen making sandwiches. Who's that? He asked. A friend. Someone I'm helping out. Lawrence frowned. You're not running a shelter, Adeline. This is a bad look. What if clients find out? What if the board hears about it? My personal life is my business. Not when it affects the company reputation. You're the face of Cole Real Estate. Every decision you make reflects on us. Think about that. These conversations happened around Beverly, never directly to her, but she heard them. She felt the weight of suspicion growing. She saw the way Rosa watched her when she walked past. She noticed Lawrence's cold stare. And then things started happening. Small things at first. Adeline mentioned missing cash from her purse. Just $40, but still. I must have spent it and forgot, she said, but her voice held a question. A week later, documents from her home office went missing. Contracts that needed signing. She found them eventually misfiled, but the seed of doubt grew larger. Beverly noticed too. She noticed the way Adeline looked at her sometimes, like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. She noticed the questions that seemed casual but weren't. Did you go in my office yesterday? Have you seen my checkbook? Each question was a small accusation wrapped in politeness. Kenneth felt it too. Kids always do. He heard the housekeeper on the phone, speaking Spanish but with Beverly's name clear in the conversation. He saw the way Adeline's business partner looked at his mother. He started having nightmares again, the same ones he'd had after his father died. Waking up crying, asking if they had to leave. Beverly knew they were wearing out their welcome. Kindness had an expiration date, especially when suspicion crept in. She started looking for jobs again, filling out applications on Adeline's computer when no one was home. She researched shelters with availability. She started planning their exit because she could feel the goodbye coming. One evening, Adeline came home early and found Beverly in her home office. Beverly was at the desk, papers spread out in front of her, the computer screen glowing. Adeline froze in the doorway. What are you doing? Her voice was cold, controlled, dangerous. Beverly looked up, startled. I was just using the computer to look for jobs. I'm sorry, I should have asked. You're going through my papers. No, I'm not. These were already here. I was just. Get out of my office. Now. The words were like a slap. Beverly stood up, hands shaking. Adeline, I wasn't. I said get out. Beverly left. She went to the guest suite and started packing. Kenneth watched, confused. Mama, what's wrong? What happened? We're leaving, baby. Start getting your things together. But why? I like it here. Because we've overstayed our welcome. Because charity always runs out. Because I should have known better. Imani started crying, sensing the tension. Beverly picked her up, holding her tight, and realized she was crying too. 3 weeks. They'd had 3 weeks of safety and warmth, and now it was over. She'd been stupid to believe it could last. Stupid to trust. There was a knock on the door. Adeline stood there, her face unreadable. We need to talk. I think you said enough. Beverly, please. I overreacted. I'm sorry. But things have been happening. Money missing. Documents misplaced. And I come home to find you in my office and You just assumed it was me. The poor woman you took in out of pity. The charity case who can't be trusted. That's not what I think. Isn't it? Rosa thinks it. Lawrence thinks it. And now you think it too. I can see it in your eyes. You regret bringing us here. You regret getting involved. Adeline was quiet for a long moment. Maybe I do. Maybe I made a mistake. I don't know you. Not really. I knew your grandmother decades ago. That doesn't mean I know you. You're right. You don't know me. You don't know that I would starve before I stole from someone. You don't know that I've had opportunities to take things from this house, expensive things, and I didn't touch any of it. You don't know that I pray for you every night, thanking God for what you've done for my children. But none of that matters now because you've already decided who I am. Beverly turned back to her packing. We'll be gone in the morning. Adeline stood there for another moment, then left without another word. If this story has your heart racing, comment, I'm still watching, and let us know what you think of Beverly and Adeline's situation so far. That night, Adeline couldn't sleep again. She sat in her bedroom, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the worst kind of person. Beverly was right. She had assumed. She had doubted. She had let other people's suspicions become her own. But the missing money was real. The misplaced documents were real. Something was happening, and if it wasn't Beverly, then who? At 3 in the morning, Adeline did something she never did. She got up and went to her home office. She opened her laptop and pulled up the security camera footage. She'd installed cameras years ago after a break-in in the neighborhood. They covered the entrances, the driveway, parts of the interior. She never looked at the footage unless there was a reason. Now there was a reason. She scrolled back through the past 3 weeks. looking for what she wasn't sure. Evidence. Proof. Something to either confirm or deny her suspicions. And then she found it. The footage was from 8 days ago. Adeline had been at a conference in Charlotte, gone overnight. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. A figure entered her home office. Not Beverly. Someone else. Someone with a key. Adeline's hands shook as she zoomed in. The image was grainy but clear enough. Lawrence, her business partner. The man she trusted for 7 years. The man who managed their accounts. The man who had access to everything. She watched him go to her desk. Open drawers. Take cash from an envelope she kept for emergencies. Photograph documents with his phone. He was calm. Methodical. Like he'd done this before. Adeline felt sick. She kept watching, scrolling through other dates. Found 3 more instances. Always when she was gone. Always taking small amounts. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would trigger immediate alarm. Just enough to make her question. Just enough to create doubt. And then she understood. Lawrence wasn't just stealing. He was setting someone up. He was creating a narrative. Making sure that when things started going missing, suspicion would fall on Beverly. The convenient stranger living in Adeline's house. The perfect scapegoat. But why? What did Lawrence gain from this beyond petty cash? Adeline dug deeper. She opened files she hadn't looked at in months. Partnership agreements. Financial statements. Property contracts. And there, buried in the details, she found it. Lawrence had been skimming. For years. Small amounts at first, then larger. He'd been moving money between accounts, creating ghost expenses, billing for services that never happened. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe more. He must have known Adeline was getting close to discovering it. Must have panicked. Bringing Beverly into the house had given him the perfect opportunity. Create doubt about the stranger. Make Adeline question her judgment. While she was distracted by suspicion about Beverly, Lawrence could cover his tracks and potentially disappear with everything. Adeline's phone was in her hand before she realized she'd picked it up. She called her lawyer. Woke him up at 3:30 a.m. Didn't care. I need you to listen carefully, she said. And I need you to not ask questions until I'm done talking. By dawn, Adeline had a plan. Her lawyer was bringing a forensic accountant. They'd document everything before confronting Lawrence. But first, she had to fix something more important. She went to the guest suite and knocked softly. Beverly opened the door, eyes red from crying. Packed suitcases sat by the bed. Kenneth was asleep, but Imani was awake, cooing softly. Can we talk? Adeline asked. I think we've said everything. Please. Give me 5 minutes. Beverly stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind her so they wouldn't wake Kenneth. She crossed her arms, defensive and hurt. Adeline took a breath. I was wrong. About everything. It wasn't you. It was Lawrence. I have proof. Security footage. He's been stealing from me for years and he was trying to frame you for it. Beverly blinked. What? He has a key. He was coming here when I was gone. Taking things. Moving things. Making it look like you were the problem. And I fell for it. I let him manipulate me into doubting you. I let my fear make me cruel. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Beverly leaned against the wall, processing. Why would he do that? Because he's been embezzling. And he knew I was going to find out eventually. You being here gave him a way to redirect suspicion. Make me look in the wrong direction while he covered his tracks. That's insane. That's desperation. People do terrible things when they're cornered. Adeline paused. I'm calling the police. He'll be arrested. But before that happens, I need you to know that I don't want you to leave. I want you and your children to stay. Not as charity. As family. Family? Beverly's voice cracked on the word. Your grandmother showed me kindness when I was invisible. When I was nothing. She saw me. Really saw me. And she helped me anyway. No judgment. No conditions. Just grace. I forgot that. I forgot what it means to see people. But you reminded me. And I want to do better. I want to be better. Beverly wiped her eyes. Adeline, I can't just live here indefinitely. I need to work. I need to provide for my kids. I know. And I have an idea about that. But first, let's deal with Lawrence. Then we'll figure out the rest. Together. If you're willing to give me another chance. Beverly studied her for a long moment. Adeline could see the debate happening behind her eyes. Trust was expensive when you'd been betrayed. Faith was hard when the world kept proving it was dangerous. Finally, Beverly nodded. I understand. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Lawrence was arrested on a Tuesday afternoon. The police came to the Cole real estate offices with a warrant. Employees watched in shock as he was led out in handcuffs, screaming about false accusations and mistakes. The forensic accountants found everything. Years of theft, creative bookkeeping, shell companies. Lawrence had stolen over $800,000 and had plans to take more. The news hit the local papers. Business journals wrote about the scandal. Adeline had to do damage control, reassuring clients and investors that the company was sound. It was exhausting and humiliating and necessary. But through it all, Beverly was there. Not in the office but at home. Making sure Adeline ate when she came home late. Keeping the house running. Taking care of the small things so Adeline could focus on the crisis. It was a strange role reversal, but it worked. Kenneth started asking about school. He'd missed months of education while they were homeless. Adeline enrolled him in a private academy near the house. Top-rated. Small classes. Teachers who actually cared. He was behind at first, struggling to catch up, but he was bright and motivated. Within weeks he was thriving. Imani grew. Started walking. Started talking. Called Adeline Auntie without being taught. The word made Adeline's chest hurt in a good way every single time. One evening, about 2 months after Lawrence's arrest, Adeline and Beverly sat on the back porch watching Kenneth play in the yard. The weather was warming. Spring was coming. "I've been thinking," Adeline said, "about what's next. For you. For all of us." Beverly glanced at her. "Okay. I want to start a foundation. Something focused on helping single mothers who are struggling. Housing assistance. Job training. Childcare. Everything you needed and couldn't find. I want to build something that keeps other families off the street." "That's ambitious. I have the resources, but I need someone who understands. Someone who's lived it. I want you to run it. Be the director. You have experience in education. You understand the community. You know what families actually need versus what wealthy people think they need." Beverly stared at her. "You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose. And a salary. A good one. Enough to get your own place eventually if you want. Or stay here. Whatever works for you. But I need someone I trust. Someone who won't let this become another charity that looks good on paper but doesn't actually help people. Can you do that?" Beverly was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What would we call it?" Adeline smiled. "I was thinking about that night. The rain. Your son asking for leftovers. What people throw away without thinking. And I thought we could call it the Leftovers Foundation. Because what society discards, we redeem." Beverly laughed, a real laugh, the first one Adeline had heard from her. "That's either the worst name or the best name I've ever heard. It's honest. It says what we do. We take what's been discarded and we give it value again." "Then yes, I'll do it." They shook hands formally, then laughed at the absurdity of formality between them. They weren't business associates. They were something else. Something that didn't have a name yet but felt like it might last. The foundation launched 6 months later. They rented a building on the east side, not far from where Beverly used to teach. Fixed it up. Created apartments for families transitioning out of homelessness. Established a job training center. Built a childcare facility so mothers could work or go back to school without worrying about their kids. Beverly hired carefully. She looked for people who'd been through it, who understood struggle not as a concept but as a lived reality. She built a staff that looked like the community they served, that spoke their language, that treated every family with dignity. Adeline funded it all, but she stayed in the background. This was her vision but Beverly's work. Adeline just made sure the money flowed and the lawyers kept the paperwork clean. Kenneth was 12 now, top of his class, talking about becoming an architect. He wanted to design buildings for people who couldn't afford fancy architects. Homes that were beautiful and functional and cheap. He drew sketches constantly. Showed them to Adeline, who studied them seriously and offered suggestions. "You could really do this," she told him one afternoon. "You could build a career around designing affordable housing. God knows we need it. Will you help me?" Kenneth asked. Every step of the way. Imani was 3. Bright and wild and fearless. She called both Beverly and Adeline Mama interchangeably, which confused strangers but made perfect sense to everyone in the house. She'd never remember the nights in the rain, the hunger, the fear. She would grow up with stability and love and opportunity. She would never know how close she came to a different life. Sometimes Beverly thought about Christopher. Wondered what he'd think of where they'd ended up. She believed he'd be proud. Believed he'd be grateful that someone caught his family when they were falling. The house wasn't quiet anymore. It was full of noise and life and mess. Toys in the living room. Homework on the kitchen table. laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Adeline had spent years building an empire. But this chaos and warmth and connection felt like the first thing she'd built that actually mattered. Few years after that night in the rain, Kenneth stood in front of a crowd at the Foundation's annual gala. He was 15 now, tall and confident, wearing a suit Adeline had bought him for the occasion. He'd been asked to speak about what the Foundation meant to him. "I remember being hungry," he said, his voice steady. "I remember my mom crying when she thought I couldn't hear. I remember kneeling on a sidewalk asking a stranger if we could have her leftover food. I remember thinking that's what we were. What nobody wanted." The room was silent. Beverly sat in the front row, tears already streaming down her face. "But then someone stopped," Kenneth continued. "Someone saw us. Really saw us. Not as a problem or a statistic or a charity case, but as people. As family. And everything changed. Not because of money, though that helped, but because of grace. Because someone remembered what it meant to be kind." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "She saved my family. But more than that, this foundation taught me that nothing is wasted. No person. No struggle. No moment of pain. It all becomes part of something bigger if you let it. My dad died and we lost everything. But we found something too. We found family. We found each other." Kenneth looked out at the crowd. "If you're here tonight, it's because you believe in second chances. You believe that people deserve dignity. You believe that we're all connected and what happens to the least of us matters. Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing what society throws away and saying it has value. Thank you for being the kind of people who stop when it's raining." The applause was thunderous. Beverly was openly sobbing now. Adeline had her arm around her, both of them overwhelmed by this boy who'd grown into such a remarkable young man. Kenneth left the stage and came straight to them, hugging them both. The foundation raised $2.3 million that night. Enough to expand. To help more families. To hire more staff. To make the impact even bigger. But the number that mattered most to Beverly was smaller. 47 families had graduated from their program. 47 families who'd been homeless and were now stable. 47 sets of children who were fed and safe and educated. 47 stories that could have ended in tragedy but instead ended in hope. Beverly Thompson and Adeline Cole should never have met. Their lives existed in completely different orbits. One woman had everything except what mattered. The other had nothing except what mattered. But a rainy night and a hungry child and a moment of grace brought them together in a way that changed everything. Think about the times you've driven past someone in need. Think about the times you've made assumptions about people based on their circumstances. Think about the times you've let fear or pride or busyness keep you from seeing the person right in front of you who needs help. What would you have done if you were Adeline that night? Would you have stopped or would you have driven past? And if you had stopped, would you have had the courage to really let them in? To risk your comfort for their need? To build something real out of a moment of compassion? How would you feel if you were Beverly? If you had to choose between pride and survival? If you had to accept help from someone who might judge you? If you had to trust again after the world had given you every reason not to? These aren't hypothetical questions. Someone near you right now is facing exactly what Beverly faced. Someone is one paycheck away from homelessness. Someone is choosing between feeding their kids and paying rent. Someone is invisible to you right now, waiting for someone to see them. And maybe you're Adeline. Maybe you have resources or time or influence that you're hoarding because it feels safer than sharing. Maybe you're lonely in your success, wondering why achievement feels empty. Maybe you're one act of grace away from discovering your real purpose. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the people you pass every day, do us a favor. Leave a comment telling us what you would have done in this situation. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances and the power of grace. And subscribe to this channel for more stories that remind us why kindness matters. Why seeing people matters. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being the kind of person who stops. Now go be someone's miracle. The world needs more people willing to share their coat in the rain.